Hey everybody, it's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 17 4 key game picks. Before we talk about week number 17, I just want to make a quick note to every one of you as we head into the final 2 weeks of the regular season. Next week's video, my Week 18, it is my special edition video. And for those of you who have been with me all the years that have watched me pick listen to my fat face giving football picks, the last week of the regular season is my least favorite video of every one of them I create. Because we're gonna go over the playoff scenarios and all that, and you're gonna hear me ramble on a little bit here. It's not my favorite video to do because all it's gonna be is just predictions. It's not gonna be like my four picks that I do every week and all that. There might be a game I might talk about or two. A lot of it's gonna depend. But given that it's my last video of the regular season and all that, we'll kind of quickly go over the scenarios, and then I'll give you my predictions of what will happen in week number 18. But if you see on the text on the fly, there's your current updated standings going into the last 2 weeks of the regular season of both the AFC and NFC 1 through 7 seeds. Obviously, going now into my thoughts. Couple of quick thoughts from what we saw in week number 16. Obviously, we have playoff clinching teams already. The Detroit Lions finally winning a division title after so many years. Obviously, if anybody knows their history of this franchise, that the last time the Lions won the division was back in 1993 when it was the Central Division. Now they finally win an NFC North division, and it was well earned and well deserved. Give the Vikings credit; they made them work for it to win that game in Week 16. So hopefully, for Dan Campbell and the Lions, will find. Well, look, they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year, but they're finally taking the steps forward, and I'm really hoping that the Detroit Lions finally make that next step, and hopefully, whatever happens in the draft, hopefully they can draft more players, and hopefully they could, if any other coordinators go off to full-time coaching jobs, wherever they're going to go in whatever NFL teams they go to, hopefully Campbell's got the right people to take over, because Johnson, their coordinator, is definitely the number one target for a lot of NFL teams right now who are in need of a head coach, aka Chargers. Anyways, what else happened? Surprises that happened in week number 16. Obviously, the 49ers got whooped by the Ravens, which to me was, I didn't see that coming. But you got to give the Ravens a ton of credit. Their defense really did a number on San Francisco offense, and now you got to wonder, did the Ravens expose the 49ers offense a little bit there? I don't know if they have, but obviously it didn't hurt the 49ers all that much because the Cowboys lost to the Dolphins, and they still have the edge on the Eagles. They're tied now in terms of the record and the record overalls and in their overall records. The 49ers still hold the edge because they beat Philadelphia earlier in the they beat Philadelphia weeks back. And they will still have technically the right to that number one seed regardless, unless somehow the 49ers collapse in their final 2 games. Tough to really say now what will go on. I mean, a lot of teams are still jockeying for position in terms of who will get the final playoff spots. But anyways, I'm gonna cut that short now because I'm trying to get this video done as quickly as possible. Obviously, Christmas is over. Hopefully, everybody had a good Christmas. And we're all heading into the new year where it's going to get a little hectic for me. So I got to do this video very quickly. So let's get into week number 17. All right. Good slate of games in week number 17, but these are the 4 games I'm going to talk about that I feel might be the best games of the weekend. So let's begin with key game number 1, and that is the Lions versus the Cowboys. The Cowboys are a 6-point favorite, and they're at home, and I would say that's about right. Now, obviously, look, Detroit's already wrapped up the division, and probably the only thing that the Lions would be playing for, probably to fight for that number 2 seed at least. But there's still a huge problem for the Lions. Look, the Eagles still hold more a tiebreaker over the Lions, and based on overall record in the conference. But for Dallas, obviously they're still trying to keep pace. I mean, Dallas doesn't really have much to play for either, other than maybe trying to steal the NFC East away from the Eagles. They still have a lot to play for, as well as a number 2 seed. Jared Goff was 30 of 40, 257 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions in the Lions, barely escaping a victory over the Vikings. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. Dak Prescott was 20 of 32, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns. Luckily, he had no interceptions. I'm going to make this quick on my pick here because obviously both teams already clinched playoff spots. And obviously, Dallas probably has a lot to play for more than the Lions do because Cowboys they want a home playoff game at home. But when I look at this Cowboy team, they may be a team where it says home, there's no place like home. And obviously, I look at this football game, they are the better team overall in terms of defense. The Dallas Cowboys have a better defense. Offense-wise, them and the Lions are about evenly matched. But the Lions' running game is much better than the Cowboys. But Dak Prescott can really, obviously he's been a much longer veteran than Jared Goff has, and Goff really, sometimes you never know with Jared Goff this season because he's had some games where he has dominated, and there's games where he's basically just fall flat. And this is a game I don't know if the Lions can win on the road because Dallas is an excellent home field advantage. And that's one of the things that the Cowboys are going to be playing as a much more desperate team because they want home playoff games. They want to show that they can win at home and they can dominate and they don't have to worry about so much going on the road. The thing with this Cowboy team, look, I expect this to be a good football game Saturday night, even though regardless, really, both teams really don't have much to play for. But I think the Cowboys do have a lot more to lose than the Lions do. I'm going to make this pick short and sweet. The Cowboys offense, I think, will definitely... Look, the Lions defense is not that great. Their secondary has trouble. They've given up big plays all year, and that's how the Bears and the Packers have exposed them. Luckily, the Lions defense stepped up against the Vikings because they knew they had to wrap up the division. Otherwise, they don't want it to go down to week number 18. But given all that jibber-jabber, I mean, I'm going to pick the Cowboys here because they have a lot to play for, and they got a lot of things on the line right now. They're trying to catch the Eagles. They want to steal the NFC East away from them and get that number 2 seed. I'm picking the Cowboys here. They're a 6-point favorite in this one here. I would say that's about right, but it wouldn't surprise me if that number will go a little bit lower. I think the Cowboys will beat the Lions here. The Cowboys are going to be playing pretty desperate right now because they want that NFC East, and they want a home game. I'm going to pick the Cowboys here. I think it's going to be... I think it's going to be a good football game Saturday night, but I think the Cowboys will definitely beat the Lions here. It would shock me if the Lions upset them here, but obviously the Cowboys have a lot to play for, a lot more than the Lions do, and I'm going to pick the Cowboys in this one here. They'll barely squeak out a victory against the Lions. I'm picking the Cowboys over the Lions. All right, key game number 2. This is a huge game here. Going into the NFC South, we have the Saints versus the Buccaneers. The Bucs are a 3-point favorite, and I would say that's about right. Derek Carr last week against the Rams was 27 of 40, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception in a bad loss to the Rams. Now, for the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield probably played one of his best games of his career, other than the Packer game. He was 26 of 35, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. This could not be a much bigger game for the Buccaneers. Obviously, because Baker Mayfield's playing for a job. And obviously, if he were to win out on the Buccaneers to win that division, no question that this would be that Baker Mayfield may have found a home in Tampa Bay. I would say he would be not a bad replacement for Tom Brady after he retired. Now, talking about this football game here, look, the Saints pretty much are in an elimination game right here. Because if they lose to Tampa Bay, they're not going to win the division, and Tampa Bay pretty much will have the upper hand in the NFC South going into week number 18. I think there's a scenario here where if the Bucs do win, they probably will win the division. Because they definitely will hold tiebreakers regardless. The Saints have a lot to prove, and obviously they're a team that really... It's a lot of head scratching in this football team. But obviously Derek Carr has been beat up all season long. He's had injuries, and he hasn't been able to get rid of the ball fast. Tampa Bay's defense is a little better than the Saints. I mean, they did a number on the Jaguars last week. They practically embarrassed them last week. And obviously for the Jags, their playoff hopes are hanging by a thread in that AFC South. But talking about this football game, the Saints are going to have to play the game of probably the game of the season here because their playoff hopes. I would say that if the Saints, look, I'm not sure mathematically, a lot of it's going to depend what happened, but I think if they lose this game, they're pretty much eliminated because they don't hold any tiebreakers. And knowing Tampa Bay and knowing Baker Mayfield the way he's been playing these last few games, this guy is on. This team has got momentum, and they could be pretty scary. I mean, listening to the talk shows with, like, obviously I watch Undisputed a lot. Obviously hearing that disgusting Skip Bayless and his bootlicking love for the Cowboys. He thinks that, if the Cowboys were to stay as a 5 seed and obviously playing the Bucs at Tampa Bay, I don't know. I think the Cowboys could be getting ahead of themselves if they were to face the Buccaneers in the first round, which would be the likely first round matchup. The Bucs could be kind of scary. They're starting to get momentum. And knowing Baker Mayfield, this guy's competitive. He wants to win. And it wouldn't shock me at all if the Buccaneers win this game and next week, and obviously they want a better record, and they want to show the Cowboys that you don't mess with us at home. Because remember, the Cowboys have struggled all year long on the road. And the Buccaneers, look, people, know where I'm going to go with here. The Buccaneers are going to beat the Saints, and I think they will definitely wrap up the NFC South division. And obviously, they want to show whoever their first round opponent's going to be, which is more likely going to be the Cowboys in the wild card round, that we're not a fluke. We're a team you don't want to mess with in the wild card round. And it wouldn't surprise me if Baker Mayfield and all they went out they're pretty much going to wrap up the division here. And it wouldn't surprise me if they show a huge fight against the Cowboys in that wild card round. The thing is, talking about this game, the Saints, they're pretty much done. There's no way I can see them upsetting the Bucs here, even though it's a 3-point favorite the Bucs have. But the Buccaneers are just a much better team, and I'm picking the Bucs over the Saints here. Key game number 3, Steelers versus the Seahawks. Seahawks are a slight 3-point favorite in this one here, and I would say that number is going to go even lower. Mason Rudolph with the Steelers was 17 of 27, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, in a big upset win over the Bengals. Geno Smith was 25 of 36, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Finally got some groove back against the Titans in a game that the Seahawks absolutely had to have, because they're barely hanging on to that playoff spot right now. This is do or die right now for the Steelers. Obviously, despite them being 8-7, they know that they don't have any tiebreakers and they have to win out, and they got to have a lot of luck on their side in order to get a playoff spot. But for the Seahawks, obviously, winning this game, it will increase their chances even more to lock up a playoff spot and may eliminate some teams in the NFC that are still in the hunt. Seattle's a tough place to play in, and the Steelers haven't had any good luck in recent memory in Seattle. Even though technically Pittsburgh's offense with Mason Rudolph did improve, but let me be real about something here. The Steelers have been a roller coaster all year long. There's going to be games where they look like they're the old Steelers, and then lately they've been a team that basically are dysfunctional. Obviously their dysfunction right now is at quarterback. And their defense really has struggled a lot. Seattle, obviously for Geno Smith, he's starting to get back into a groove, and he's starting to feel much better after... Obviously, he's had some injuries this year. But knowing the Seahawks and their home field advantage and all, that's why I'm picking the Seahawks in this game. I think the Seahawks, obviously, they're fighting for their playoff lives as much as the Steelers are. And the Seahawks are going to probably be playing more desperate than the Steelers because they want a playoff. They want to get back to the postseason. I think for the Steelers right now, going into the week number 18 is obviously going to be a huge factor because obviously they wouldn't be eliminated just yet. But for Seattle, obviously, I think the game is much bigger for them, and obviously having the home field will definitely help them because they're trying to cling on to that last playoff spot. I'm picking the Seahawks here. I think that the Seahawks offense and Geno Smith will find a way to get it done. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I don't think this will be a shootout of any kind. I think given Seattle has been pretty good at home, even though their record doesn't say it. Look, they beat the Eagles a couple weeks ago. Look, Seattle's not like the old Legion of Boom days and all that, but their offense, I think, will get the job done. Pittsburgh, I just don't trust. I don't trust the Steelers. I really don't. And given having to play different quarterbacks, and everybody says Mason Rudolph now could be the guy, the team is dysfunctional. Let me be real. And I think going into this game with Seattle, obviously Pittsburgh desperately needs this, but Seattle probably wants it more because they want to get back to the postseason. And I'm picking the Seahawks here. It'll be a close game. I think it's going to go back and forth. A lot of it's going to come down to who doesn't turn the ball over in this one. I'm picking the Seahawks over the Steelers. And finally, key game number 4. It is what I call the winner of this game probably will be the number 1 seed. It is the Dolphins versus the Ravens. Tua was 24 of 37, 292 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception, in a huge victory over the Cowboys. Lamar Jackson was 23 of 35, 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interception, in a huge victory over the 49ers. The Ravens are a 3.5-point favorite, and I would say that's about right. The Dolphins have struggled so much on the road, as bad as the Cowboys. And they're a team, and they were fortunate enough to beat a good team last week in the Cowboys, but this is going to boil down to definitely who gets the number 1 seed in the AFC, given the fact that the Chiefs lost, and they pretty much have eliminated themselves from getting that number 1 seed altogether. Because I don't see the Ravens letting up here. They know Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson really is a guy on a mission, and he's played very well all season long. And Miami, I don't trust this team. I really don't. They barely beat the Cowboys last week, and obviously they have a lot of problems on defense. Their offense was fortunate enough they got the job done. But but the way that the Ravens played last week against the 49ers, that to me should be sending a signal to the rest of the AFC. We're the ones that are going to be the top dog in that conference, and we want a shot at the Super Bowl. It boils down to, can Tua and that offense match up very well with Lamar Jackson's and their Raven offense. I think this game could be a shootout. This game might be a shootout for sure. But given the way the Ravens defense played against the 49ers, they sent a huge statement. I'm picking the Ravens here. I think the Ravens pretty much will wrap up the number 1 seed in this football game. And I just don't trust the Dolphins. And it opens up the door for the Bills, because even though the Dolphins will be in the playoffs, but obviously you want that home game at home, and obviously the Dolphins should be playing more desperate in this one. But the Ravens want the home field advantage overall. And knowing full well that the Dolphins will definitely be in a dogfight with the Bills going into the last week of the season. Obviously, because as I boiled down, it's going to come down to the Dolphins and Bills in Week 18 to who wins that division. For this football game here, I like the Ravens here. I think the Ravens' offense is way better than the Dolphins here. The Dolphins are terrible on the road, and that's why I'm picking the Ravens here. It might be a shootout, but there's no question that the Ravens are the much better team here. I'm picking the Ravens over the Dolphins. All right, everybody, that wraps up my 4 key game picks. There was some games I could have talked about, too, that have also playoff implications. But I think this would be, look, this is just my opinion. I really don't know. The other games could be much better. But I feel that these are the games I feel that might be the best games of the weekend. So, everybody, thank you for watching my 4 key game picks for week number 17. Please check all of my week 17 picks below in the description. And I will talk to you guys next week for week number 18 in my special edition video. Enjoy your New Year's, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys next week when we get into my week 18 special edition video. Take care, everybody.